anything.
I like that.
It's
That's
like
also not bad. That's also not
Not
bad.
bad.
Not doing anything.
Not doing anything is not bad at all.
Very bad. With
No.
no
Not bad
fights,
at all. You're lucky.
with
No, but
no
Fali
fights and no-
disagrees. He says very bad.
It's not a good business to be in.
Yeah. My goodness.
Come, hi Carl, how are you?
Very well. How are you doing, Suresh?
Very well.
Nirav, you're
Yeah,
growing a
very well.
beard.
Good to see you.
It's not his.
I think Nirav is growing a beard.
Yeah, Nirav is growing a beard.
Yeah, Nirav, welcome to the club.
Yes, I can see that.
The new look, I like it. Hi, Anand.
Very nice.
Ah. Hey, Mudit, after this meeting,
Yes.
can we speak, please? I need to talk to you.
Yeah, with me? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Nitish Bhai.
Get your this.
Okay, let's discuss it right away since Sheila is also
Yeah.
here. You know,
Okay.
they want people wanted a change of timing
Correct.
to have it at 1:30.
Hmm.
But when we took a quick survey on WhatsApp, it was a very, very close call.
Okay.
But only about 120
it's gone.
people, were contacted.
Okay.
So I'd like the attendance committee to actually
Sound is gone, Samrose.
to talk to all concerned
Okay.
and work on that. Yeah.
Okay. So you
Fali,
want
no sound.
Sheila, as it is, we've already asked our speakers to be here at 12. So for this month, we'll keep it the same. Yeah.
okay.
And from next month, we'll take it forward.
No
we'll discuss
sound.
it. We'll
No, so-
discuss it.
Fali, you want us to
Fali-
contact the other Rotarians, call them up and find out?
So I'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
Let the meeting
Okay.
get over.
Fine.
I'll talk
Got
to you
it.
about
Got it.
Great.
Excellent.
Meanwhile, we'll send a communication to the rest of the speakers to change the timing to 1:30.
Yeah. So the month of October will continue.
Yeah, we'll do that today, well, this week itself. Yeah.
Okay. Where?
So that's the Dubai campus. Hi, Nons.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome, warm welcome.
Fali,
anyone
please repeat. Fali, please repeat what you said about the timing.
I'll tell you about it. I'll announce it at the meeting also.
All right.
Tell you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Sean.
Morning, Satyan.
Good morning.
Morning.
Fali,
Daddy.
Morning, Sabira.
Good morning.
Fali, for the board meeting, you were in a t-shirt and now suited and booted.
I have so many to impress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Fali.
Fali, you're one person who doesn't have to do much to impress.
Well, that's kind of you. Very kind of you. Thank you.
Hi everyone.
Tony, did you hear that?
Hi,
I
Zenia.
Hi.
Where are you, Zenia? Goa.
No, I wish I was. It's just a virtual background.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was getting envious.
I know. I wish I was there.
I know. A lot of people are
Morning,
going to
Hiren.
Goa now.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Good.
Fine, nice to
Doctor,
meet you.
doctor still in Goa?
Yes, Suresh, still in Goa.
Hi, Doc.
Hi.
How is it over there, Doc?
Hi, Fali.
Goa is quite safe.
No, nothing is safe now. There are about 500 to 700 cases every day. We have 117 cases in our village, which is a small village near Mapsa.
Oh my
So,
God.
It's still, this month is going to be difficult everywhere.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
You should.
And
Hi,
What-
Fali.
What is your
Hi, everyone.
Doc?
Hi, good.
Yeah.
Hey, Jaggi, good morning. How are you?
Doc, are you in Goa?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Not a champagne thing, but yeah, why not?
Hey,
Hey, I'll only open for champagne.
Hey.
Yes, you give me champagne, I'll open this.
Hi, Malti.
Hey,
super.
Don't miss your...
take my
What's-
photograph. Take my
what's-
photograph.
Done. What's written on the mask?
Go closer, go closer. We'll only remove for champagne.
We'll only remove for
Go
champagne.
closer.
And
Good
someone
one.
will, aha.
Like it.
I like it, right?
Yeah.
Excuse,
Pali
Send the champagne
send
home.
a few more
Pali
bottles.
did. Pali did.
let's
How do you-
invest in champagne.
You get all these.
We need champagne right away.
Champagne lunches.
Yes.
Champagne lunches, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful.
Nitish,
Marty,
hi.
you're looking
Hi.
Trust me.
Hi, everyone.
One
phone
way
you.
to week,
Good
every
afternoon.
moment.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
I'm missing your
Phone you.
I'm missing your earrings, Malti.
I know,
Yes,
I know.
Sabby
I'm
is
not
also
very
looking.
first
Hi,
time
Mudit,
I'm
Malti,
looking
looking
very
good.
Hi,
good.
Sabi.
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
Hi, Irene.
Hira,
How are
Hare
you?
Krishna.
Very good.
Hello, Sabi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Very kind.
Hey, Shyam, good
Ramesh
morning.
Bye. Came to.
How are
Hi,
you?
Ramesh Bhai.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey,
Shamji,
Hi.
How
Shamji.
are you, Suresh?
Very well, thanks.
How are you, Suresh? Good.
Very well, Shyam.
See
Thanks.
you. Yeah.
Very well.
Hello,
Very well.
November.
Hi.
Came
Hello.
to. Good.
Shamji,
Good.
where's the mask? Shamji, where's the mask?
You do
Who?
what you are afraid of at your own house, Malti?
I know, just kidding.
She's protecting herself from Mudit.
Right. You're right.
Right.
Hi, Satyan.
I could,
Sabby,
Hi,
looking well.
Sangeeta.
yeah,
Looking great.
Thank
Not honorary, honorable secretary.
thank you. What are you drinking, Farhad? Looks suspiciously like.
No, just black tea.
Oh.
I haven't
Hey,
got an
Hi,
ask
Kalpana
to wait for a
Kalpana.
champagne.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello,
Hi, Kalpana.
Satyan,
Hi,
wearing a big
Kalpana. How are
hello,
earphone.
you?
hello.
Hello.
Good, good.
Hello,
How's
Kalpana ji.
Lavla doing,
Hi,
Hello,
Kalpana?
hello,
Today without
Mudit,
the
how are
earphone.
you?
Fine,
Mudit, how are
fine.
you?
Fine, fine, Kalpana ji.
We
Nice
want
to
you
see
to
you.
be fit and fine. We want you to be fit and fine.
Huh?
I told her about the back. We want you to be fit and fine.
Yeah, much better now, Kalpana ji.
Hello,
Much better.
Kalpana.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi,
Good
hi.
morning, Kalpana.
I'm fine, Suresh. I'm in Lonavala.
Oh,
Hey,
Lonavala, how lovely.
yeah,
Teacher.
it's so beautiful here.
Lucky all of you who are out of Bombay.
What are
I
you
heard
eating,
some-
Kalpana ji?
Is
What are you
that-
eating? Apple. Oh, wow, how healthy.
It keeps the doctor away.
Yes. Mukesh,
Keep
you're
Dr.
right.
Bacha away.
Morning, Peter.
Yeah, where do you get this virtual background?
Hello,
Farhan,
Jamal.
my cousin has also joined. Huh?
Yeah.
Hi,
you can
Ashish.
find-
Arey, where did he go?
Yeah, hello.
Who are you talking about?
Ashish,
Richard, who are you looking for?
I was just saying hi, Ashish, and he put it into one big A.
Hi, hi.
have you
Just
started?
going to compliment you.
Good morning.
Hi, Ashish.
Hi,
Ashish.
How are you?
I was just going to compliment you on the nice big Lakshman Shrestha behind you.
Thank you.
Hey, Ashish, good morning.
The
Hello,
talk,
Ashish.
the talk of the town is Sabi's Gaiton Deva.
Yeah.
Gaitonde has gone up to 30 crores now, Sabi.
yeah.
34 crores.
Oh, very nice.
Hello,
Very
plus
nice.
tax
Not
it goes to 42, 45.
Not
50,
that much.
50,
No.
50, 50.
Oh, nothing. No,
Okay,
it's very.
guys. We need to start the meeting now. It's
Okay.
already
Nitish, hi.
Yes, please.
Good morning, President.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Dushyant.
Dakshan.
Hey.
Satyan, are you
Go
here?
ahead.
Yes, I'll mute everyone.
Yes,
Yes.
please. I think it's 12:05. Let's.
Hi, Fali.
Hi. Hi.
President, sir. How are you?
Hi, everybody. We'll start the meeting right away. Right, fellow Rotarians, the meeting is now called to order. Please rise for the national anthem. That's one of the nicest versions of our national anthem that I've heard. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Nitish Jain, philanthropist, educationist, and President SP Jain College of Global Management, who will address us today on how technology is driving the future of education. Before we begin, there were some members at the last meeting who requested that our weekly meetings be held at 1:30. Whilst an initial survey was done, the outcome was very close, with 62 in favor of 1:30 compared to 58 in favor of 12 noon. But I think this is not the correct number of people we should be contacting. We need to contact most of our club. So I will request the attendance committee to please go ahead and take a proper survey and make sure that we get a correct and logical timing that we need to have our weekly meetings. However, till the meetings of September, all the meetings of September will be at 12 noon. May I now request Honorary Secretary Satya Nisrani to make birthday announcements?
Sure. Members celebrating their birthdays during the week. Today, in fact, we are celebrating the birthdays of Rotarians Dave Tukral and Jimmy Vakharia. Tomorrow, we have past President Rotarian Paul George and Ashok Jatia. On the 12th, it's Rotarian Ashish Jalan. And on the 13th, we have Rotarians Abhin Alimchandani and Rotarian Yogesh Mahansarya.
Thank you. I wish you all a very happy birthday and many more years of active Rotary service.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I now request Rotarian Nitish Jain to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Nitish Jain.
President Fali and fellow Rotarians, Nitish Bhai is my elder brother, who branched out on his own from the family business to building various brands. He first built Captain Cook, the eponymous brand associated with iodized salt in the 90s, and then Atta. And in the last 16 years has been focusing in building SP Jain School of Global Management into a world institution. By the way, my grandfather, Nitish's and my grandfather was a member of this club, and Nitish's father was also a member of our club. So Mr. Jain is an educationist, philanthropist, entrepreneur, and technology enthusiast all rolled into one. The SP Jain School of Global Management first started its journey in Dubai in 2004, and thereafter expanded to Singapore, Sydney, and finally Mumbai. It's accredited to the Australian Business School Association, and the degree is awarded from Australia. His unique cross-cultural experience in offering management education has made the SP Jain School of Global Management into its one-year program of Global MBA into the top 20 program amongst all the MBA programs in the world. And this is competing with the likes of Harvard, Oxford, etc. So in 16 years, he has got what has taken centuries for other global institutions. His unique ELO, virtual classroom, and Neuro Lab are other pioneering technological initiatives to make education more cutting edge. Mr. Jain has received numerous awards, being feted by CMO Asia for his outstanding contribution to education, the Entrepreneur of the Year Award by Times Now, and the Award for Business Excellence by the Australia-India Business Council. He was also a part of the entourage of PM Modi's meet of CEOs after the G20 meeting in Australia. He has been extensively interviewed by international publications and media such as the Sydney Morning Post, Bloomberg TV, BBC, ET Now, ZTV, as well as been invited as a speaker in numerous international conferences. Mr. Jain is active in FICCI and YPO organizations, and also through his family trusts provides medical and educational assistance to the needy. He holds an MBA in finance from Cornell. Fellow Rotarians, that is Mr. Nitish Jain for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that very glowing introduction, Mudit. I don't know why God has given us brothers, because brothers can give you more tributes than what you deserve. So thank you so much for that. I also warmly wish all the birthday boys and girls a very happy birthday in September. So wish you have a great day. You know, while driving to my campus, I was talking with Farhat, and Farhat said that, you know, I wish I was 40 so I could join one of SB Jain's programs. So the good news is that we're actually starting some programs for the above 60, you know, just pure fun programs, just so that you learn some new language, you can actually converse with your children, right? Because many of us, you know, we speak Latin, as children speak Greek, and we can't even have a proper conversation. So, you know, we'll just start some of these fun classes, but you have to be over 60 to join, because you need a certain level of maturity, right? The bachas will not cut it. So therefore, unless you're above 60, you would not be able to join any of these programs that rules out Mudit and Malti straight away. So let me begin with the topic for today, which is the future of education. And today is going to be a combination of my views. It's going to be learning some jargons like asynchronous learning that you may not know, but you can show off to your friends. Hey, mister, why don't you try asynchronous learning? And it's just going to be fun. So relax, and I will spend about 30 minutes with you making a short presentation and then leaving it open for questions as per the format of the Rotary. So I am assisted by my colleague Jenny, who is actually running the slides. So hello, Jenny, and we can now move on to the next slide. So education will obviously see a massive transformation, and I've broken it up into what would be immediate changes and what would be changes that we can see over the next 5 years. So let me first start with what will be, what we can expect to see in education over the next 5 years. And lo and behold, human beings will slowly but steadily give way to computers doing most of the heavy lifting when it comes to teaching. We at SB Jain have already started experimenting with bots to teach. Initially, they will be teaching low-level stuff, but increasingly they will become more equipped for teaching even complex learning goals. And, you know, bots, you may say, why should a human be replaced? It's just the way the world is, because bots can do the same job better, more efficiently, and at a much lower price point. So what is technology doing? Technology is reducing the costs. So today, if you find college fees high, I suspect that going forward, college fees may be even 50% of what it is today, just because we will have computers doing much more than what they've been doing till now. Next. So when we actually use human beings, there will be VR and holograms that would enter the classrooms, which means that a professor need not actually stand in front of you teaching. Because let's imagine that you are in Nagpur or some other small place in India. How do you expect a top-end AI specialist to teach you? Where will you find such a person? Will he actually be willing to travel to Nagpur? And I'm just using Nagpur as an example. So anyone from Nagpur, please forgive me. I just took one place just to make my point. But VR can get somebody from the Silicon Valley or Cambridge or some other part of the world and actually teach you, and you will get the impression that this person is teaching, standing in front of you, and the experience will be very different. And I'm not talking about science fiction, I'm talking about technology here and now, but in the next 5 years, we will see much more of it in the classrooms. Next. Now, education today is a one-size-fits-all. That means you sit in a classroom with 50 students, 70 students, and everyone gets taught at the same pace, in the same fashion. And we all know that many of us learn in a different manner. We learn at a different pace. We have different grasping speeds. So education, as it becomes more computer-driven, will be personalized. It would be customized to the learner. For example, I can say, I prefer to learn using videos, and I can get video content. And somebody else may say, I would prefer to learn using traditional textbooks, and you can get that sort of format. I want to learn at twice the speed. I want to learn at half the speed. So education is becoming customized. It is being customized even today at SP Jain, but going forward, it will be far more customized so that it optimizes learning. Instead of the one-size-fits-all model, you'll have a size small, you'll have a size large, you will have a size medium, so that it optimizes the speed and the way in which people learn. Next. Now, this is a very complex thought, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it unless somebody has a question later. But today, learning is very structured. And so it is, but going forward, it will be unstructured because the world is unstructured. You know, we all maybe either working for a company or working for our own businesses, and we know that nothing is structured. In fact, it's totally unstructured. But education is so structured that it doesn't actually prepare us for the real world. But going forward, education also would be unstructured. And I can tell you more about it later if somebody's really interested. Next. So I move on now to the immediate part. So right now, as we speak, online education will be far more effective than it used to be in the past. And COVID has been a catalyst because today every university in the world has moved to online. And therefore, the quality of online, the technology of online has all improved. And I will talk to you a bit more about SP Jain's experience in online later. So with online, I don't think students are very prepared for online. Students still say, I want the real education. I want the real on-campus education. So there will be a shift to a combination of online and on campus, and that's called hybrid. Why hybrid and why not fully on campus after we are through with COVID? And I expect we'll be through with COVID in about 12 months from now. I suspect that hybrid will continue to be the norm even after the 12 months because it will reduce the cost of education. Coming to our campus is an expensive proposition because there's a lot of extra costs that you may not really need. Now you can say, I like the on-campus experience, but let me go there for only 6 months out of 12. Why do I need to be there for all 12 months? And thereby can have a reduction in fees. And that's going to be the trend going forward. Next. Now, we have all, especially guys of my age, when we went to a school or a college, there was no internet. And so the focus of education was knowledge, because there was no other way to get your knowledge. And so we went to a school or a college, a university to gain knowledge. And the most knowledgeable was the best student in the class. But that's no longer the case because of the smartphones that we have today. You can actually go to a doctor, do some research online, and have an argument with him and say, hey, doc, I'm going to get side effects with this medicine that you're prescribing. And the doc will tell you, please don't look at the internet. So today the internet has made us far more wise than what we think we are. But nonetheless, my point being, it is now the game has shifted to skills. How quickly can you apply what you've learned? This is where the game is. Skills like critical thinking, skills like communication, skills like teamwork. These are the sort of skills that companies look for. These are the skills that perhaps you would look for when you hire somebody. Next. Now, again, coming back to exams, traditionally tested memory or theory, but increasingly exams now teach applications. At SP Jain, every exam is an application. There is nothing like a theory question anymore, because it is the application that makes you actually apply the skills that we teach in the classrooms. And it also makes exams more fun. I'm sure that many of you, like me, may have found exams the most stressful part of the university experience or school experience. You dreaded exams because you had to sit up till late night and memorize stuff. And it was awful to memorize stuff. Now you apply things so you can actually think as you do your exam. And it's much more fun, it's far more productive, and at the end of it, you have something useful. Your exam paper is something that you can actually refer to later on because it's an application of what you may have learned in the class. Next. And so, I spoke earlier about education being customized to the learner, but partial customization has already begun. And so it's not going to move from 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. It's going to be slowly, step by step. So as we move, to customize education, it's going to have small baby steps as we move along. And maybe in 5 years, we may see a complete customization. Next. So let me talk about, what I spoke about, immediate, the immediate changes and the improvement or the enhancement of technology when it comes to online education. So let me give you first a background of what is online education. Why did online education, be invented? And where is it today? So online education was born to supplement classroom education and not to replace classroom education. This happened many years ago, maybe at least 2 decades ago, but it became popular only about 7 to 8 years ago, thanks to MOOCs, and I'm going to explain that. Next. Yeah, so it was popularized by MOOCs. Now, this is again something that if you don't know what MOOCs is, you will be impressed to have some take-home value. MOOC stands for, Massive Open Online Courses. This is what MOOC stands for. And the first MOOC that was very popular is called Coursera. Some of you may have already done a Coursera course. And there's another one called edX. These are the 2 most popular online MOOCs courses, but there are many more today. Coursera was started by Stanford University, and edX was started by Harvard and MIT. They were designed to offer recorded classes, or what is called asynchronous. So I talked to you about, some new jargon that you may learn today. Asynchronous stands for not live or recorded. The recorded could be a recorded professor, or it could be recorded content, which simply means not live. And synchronous means live teaching. You have a physical professor who could teach either in the classroom or even online, but live. That's called synchronous learning. So MOOCs was largely asynchronous. What they did was a very clever concept. They had a Stanford professor or a professor from one of the leading universities record his classroom. So you could have, let's say, a Wharton professor record his accounting classroom. And this recording could then be viewed by anyone who wanted to learn accounting from a Wharton professor, but could not actually get to Wharton. And they offered these classes for free. Anytime you wanted, you could see it. It was recorded, so you could put pause, go to the bathroom, come back, resume. And it was very effective because it had more than, it grew exponentially, 3 times more of the last year. And today there may be some 20 or 30 million viewers for MOOCs courses. Next. So online education, thanks to MOOCs, carries a stigma of being very cheap, maybe even free, but ineffective, because the completion rate of a MOOCs course is very low. Very low as in about 5% of people who have started a MOOCs course actually complete one. So 95% start but don't complete. They don't complete because it's very difficult to learn by yourself on your own. It is, you need to be very motivated to study because, there's everything better that comes up in your life than learning. Because, I'll learn it tomorrow. I'm going to put it off. Today, let me watch that Netflix movie. This Ritu was telling me about this great Netflix film, and I got to watch it today. But this accounting class, let me do it tomorrow. And this keeps repeating. So as a result, there is no motivation. When you go to a physical university, there is class timings. So, you have to go by 10 o'clock. Everyone else is there. You don't want to come late because everyone will look at you when you enter the classroom. And it's just more disciplined. But online education, especially the asynchronous online education, lacks that discipline, hence people don't complete it. But the 5% who are very motivated because they want the next job or they're really keen on the subject matter, they complete it. So, but as a result, I want to make this main point that online education today, most people, if you say online, they say, no, Baba, I don't want to do online because it's not good. So it carries that stigma of it being ineffective. And I say stigma because I'm going to dispel that in a few minutes from now. Next. So I already talked to you that online education can be broken up into synchronous, which means live teaching, and asynchronous, which means recorded. And both the synchronous can also be online. It is not need. 100% of online need not be asynchronous. Next. So I already talked to you that asynchronous was started by MIT, Harvard, and Stanford, but now it's lots of people. Many in India know Byju's. Byju's is also asynchronous. It's designed for schools, high schools, but it is asynchronous content. And there are many other versions of asynchronous. So it's recorded. Next. Courses are offered free or at a very small cost. Now, because they became so popular, they said, why don't we charge a small fee for it? And so we started off as being completely free, now has a small cost. And especially if you want a certificate from that university, you have to pay, but it's still very small money. Next. It had a fatal flaw because if 95% cannot complete, the course that you started, then what's the point? I think, but there are certain other, I'm just painting everything with a broad brush. For certain courses, the completion rate may be higher. For a course in AI by the world's #1 professor from Stanford called Andrew Ng, the completion rate is less than 1%. His course in AI has a completion rate of less than 1% because it's so complicated that only 1% can understand what Andrew's talking about. But he's the world's #1. Synchronous learning is now usually delivered by universities using Zoom. And many of you who have used Zoom, like they're using Zoom right now, would possibly know that Zoom is good for webinars, Zoom is good for office meetings. Zoom was not really designed for classrooms. And the same is true for Microsoft Skype or Microsoft Teams, Google Hangout. They were all designed for office meetings of 7, 8, 10 people, or a webinar where the speaker speaks but doesn't see the audience. You're just speaking, to the computer screen. You're not actually speaking to an audience where you can see people. Now, many people say, I like the real stuff. I want the real classroom experience. Why? Because in a real classroom, a professor can see you. Who asked that question? The professor can make eye contact with the student. So he can actually go up to the student, look at the student in his eyes and say, let me explain the question that you've just asked. And it feels good because someone is talking to you. But, when you do Zoom or you do Microsoft or you do Google, you're not really talking to a student. You're just talking generally speaking. Even when a student is asked a question, you can't really make eye contact with the student. And that, as humans, we are used to. We're used to how we were taught in a school. We're used to how we were taught at college. And that whole simple notion of eye contact changes everything. And, we know in Zoom that more than 20 or 25 students, you have to go to the next screen. So you can't even see them small size. In a thumbnail also, you cannot see them unless you change the screen. So you can't see their facial. If you teach something, you want to see how are students responding to you. What's their facial expression? Are they nodding? Are they shaking their head? Are they looking confused? Are they disengaged? Are they chatting on their phone? What are they doing? And I think as a professor, or at least as a high quality professor, as a sincere professor, you need to see all of this. Because if you don't see this, you don't yourself get engaged. So in order to replicate a classroom online, SP Jain has developed, I think, one of the finest technologies in the world, not just in India, we're the only ones in India, but in the world. And I think our technology has been much appreciated, much talked about, written about. So many newspapers have carried articles on this, and it's simply called ELO. E stands for engaged, L stands for learning, and O stands for online. So ELO, and I'm going to show you what a ELO room looks like, because you may then appreciate what I'm saying. So this is the ELO room at SP Jain. There are 20 television screens, and on each screen you can have 3 professors because they're large monitors, and you can see 3 students. I said professors, that was a mistake. I meant 3 students on each screen. So you can see the professor on the right side of the picture, and he's talking to students who are actually remote. They're not physically in front of him, but because of the special technology, it appears that they are in front of him. So it's a real classroom. It's a full-size real classroom, but instead of seats where you have physical students, you actually have these television monitors, and you can see the students, and it appears that the students are sitting right in front of you. In fact, every student is sitting in the first row. There are no backbenchers in this room. So somebody like me would feel very lost because I was a backbencher. But I think in this ELO room, you can have students who are all appearing to the professor to be sitting in the front row. And you can see by looking at the pictures that these students come from many different countries. They don't need to be all from the same country. So if you go to a classroom, say in India, 100% of the students will be Indian. But because this is a virtual classroom, you can have students from the US, from Europe, from Africa, from India, Singapore, Australia, from every country, and they actually all share the same classroom. And that makes it so very appealing, because a lot of business school learning happens through a conversation, happens through a discussion, happens through happens through problem solving. And this can be done in a multicultural, multinational environment. And this ELO also has many special features that does not even exist in a classroom. For example, you could do polling. So we could do a real-time poll and say, should Procter & Gamble put up their next plant in China, India, or Brazil, or Tokyo? And students can vote real-time, and the professor would also know which student has voted for what. The student doesn't know that, but because of some special color coding, I can find out that James in row 2 has actually voted for Brazil, and Jack in row 3 has voted for India. And you could then ask these students, Jack, why did you vote for India? No, whom did you vote for? You know, and you'd say, I voted for India. And you already know that beforehand. So the conversation can be far more impactful, and it's completely changed the way we learn. And also you can have breakout rooms, so you can have 3, 4, 5 students who sit in a breakout room, which means that only they can have a private conversation. The other students cannot hear them. They're still where they are. They haven't left their homes, but they can still be in a private meeting room, and then the professor can get them back into the real classroom. So it's a very, very effective way to learn. Next slide, please, Jenny. So ELO offers, you know, a premium online experience. I did talk before that students today feel, or most people feel, that online learning is ineffective. But I think I've demonstrated that with superior use of technology, this can become very effective. And, you know, many times people ask me the question, how long did it take you to develop this technology? How costly? We've spent a couple of millions in developing this technology. It's not cheap. It's a very expensive technology. And we actually started, you know, developing this technology 2.5 years ago. And even till today, we continue to refine this technology based on feedback that we get. So the important point is professors can make eye contact with even 60 students. You can see their facial expressions. You can see who's agreeing with you. You can see who's disagreeing with you. You can, you know, actually see that they are physically there in the classroom, and the professor can walk up to a student. So the cameras are robotic cameras. that can actually move with the professor, and you can see the student when you make this contact, when you speak to the student. So it's very, very effective. Next. And then there are value-added features to make the room even much more engaging than a real classroom. Next. So we have these studios in 4 countries. The 4 countries are where we have our campuses: India, Dubai, Singapore, and Australia. So imagine that you have a top high-end finance professor based in Sydney, and he can teach to a student in Nagpur. Again, coming back, I'm just picking on Nagpur today. So, you know, it's highly unlikely that Nagpur students would get a top high-end faculty from Australia being able to teach that particular student live. Now, this is all live teaching, synchronous teaching. So because of the different studios that we have, professors, we can employ professors from any one of these countries, and they can teach students anywhere in the world. So that enhances not just the technology, but even the quality of the faculty who teach the student. Next. So I'm going to move to another concept, and this concept is called the borderless classroom. I'll just share with you what I mean by a borderless classroom. Next slide, Jenny. So the first point is a question that actually I had asked our top management team, which consisted of a lot of very, very highly qualified faculty and even other people, and said, do we really need 4 walls to deliver education? Because that is what we have all grown up thinking, that I need to be in a physical classroom. Do you need 4 walls to deliver education? And I'm going to argue we don't. Next point. So I had shown that using the ELO technology, you can actually have a real classroom-like experience from students from around the world. Now, SP Jain has developed the borderless MBA, and it's already a running product. So it's not, I'm not talking about anything 5 years from today. I'm talking about something 1 month from today. We have tied up with many universities from many different countries, and all of them are giving us 4, 5, 6 students. And so the classroom now would consist of students from all over the world, and including SP Jain students naturally. So you actually have this borderless experience. So please stay on the word borderless. They have a borderless experience because students now are from around the world. They're not limited by geography. And this can just expand, as you may well imagine, that there's no stopping this. You can have students from any continent, any country, any demography. Next. Now, the faculty can also be from around the world. So it's not just the students. Students and faculty can be from various parts of the world, and also the guest speakers. Not SP Jain. Every class needs at least 1 or mostly 2 guest speakers from a company. That explains that. So, for example, when they learn supply chain, they can get a professor, they can get a guest speaker, apologize for that, a guest speaker from, let's say, Toyota from Japan, and Ford Motors from the US. And they can talk about how supply chain is done from in their countries. Or you can get somebody from a technology company, or you can get, you know, I mean, it's just endless. Now, because they don't have to leave their country to come to SP Jain, they don't mind giving 30 minutes of their time. In fact, many of them feel honored to give 30 minutes of their time. And just imagine the learning experience for students. You've just learned supply chain from a professor in the classroom, and then somebody else from the real world can enhance that. And it's all happening online. I think after COVID, we know that online can be equally effective when it comes to listening to somebody. And I think we have latched onto that thought and we're taking it to a whole new level through this borderless classroom. Next. Even the out-of-class activities. So we all go to the campus for the in-class experience, but also a lot of the out-of-class experiences. So let me share with you, and looking to the audience, some of you may be quite interested in learning salsa dancing, would you not? Now, SB Jain has actually tied up with salsa trainers from Cuba. Now, I don't know, perhaps you already know that Cuba was the home of salsa dancing. So imagine you get a real Cuban to teach you salsa dancing in Mumbai, you know, and how exciting is that? So you don't really need a trainer from your own city to offer you out-of-class activities. You can have trainers from anywhere in the world. And because the whole experience is online and borderless, you're very open to this online experience and open to training in such a format. Next. Okay, so great. We've come to the end of it, and I hope I have not extended my time. And I look forward to, you know, any questions. I hope the material has not been too heavy. I tried to be simple, and just hope that some of you have some follow-up questions. And Jenny, may I request you to read out the questions so that I can.
Sure. Sure. Hi, everyone. There was a question about the ELO room. ELO, great idea, but can the students see each other as well?
Yes, absolutely. What I'll do after this, I'll send you a link, a video link. It's on YouTube. So when you see that, you will understand this much better. I'll send it across to you, Mudit, and if you can send it off to everyone else, that would be good for, then you can just see it. I mean, some of you may have a greater interest in other people. Students can see each other because you have what is called room view. And so you can see every other student in the classroom. It's like Zoom. So it's much like Zoom where you can see everyone. But then when the professor speaks, it gets into speaker view where you see the professor and you see the content. He may be making a presentation, so you can see that. And so it's really very, very effective. And then a lot of other features in that. So I shared with you polling. I talked to you about breakout rooms. Then you can have, let's say, chat. Chat is simply a question where I can ask you, or I can challenge you to think of an answer, and you can offer your replies on chat. So I can just engage every student. You know, when you're in a real classroom, you put up hands, and only the 1 or 2 or 3 people who are called upon can answer. Here, every student can answer. So it completely changes the way in which students come prepared for class and answer questions.
There is another question. Can we use such a technology for our Rotary meetings?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any advantage to use it for Rotary meetings because I don't think that you guys see yourself as though you're in a classroom. But if you want a classroom-like experience, then the answer is yes, you can. But you will have to come to one of the professor, whoever is teaching you, needs to come to our SP Jain campus in Mumbai, and then he or she can then conduct the class. You cannot do it from Taj hotels or, you know, from a board from that, because you need the specialized equipment and the room. But you don't need it for a regular meeting because it's not, you don't need that eye contact. that is required in classrooms.
The next question, would online education be more cost effective?
Absolutely, absolutely. Going forward, so when you run a college, there's so much of hidden costs that is not apparent to most students, and surely not to most parents who would always argue about why the fees so high, because they don't know, the hidden costs of running a college, and there are many things that people don't need. So the future, again, if I may talk about the future of education, it will be the unbundling of services. Today we have one fee, and it's called cruise ship pricing. So you pay one fee, and then everything else is included. Your food, your entertainment, everything is included. It's called cruise ship pricing. But this makes it very expensive. So there will be unbundling of costs, because some of them want sports, some of them don't want, some of you want music, some of them don't want. So there are too many costs that are there in a college. When you have online, you can choose very easily. So just the education can be online, which is just the learning part, but then the out of class activities can be segregated. And so I think online education is also very scalable. You can have students from so many different countries. So it's very scalable. And therefore, over a period of time, online will become cheaper. Now, many people expected that immediately there should be a cost reduction, because till March, we had on campus, and then from April, we had online, reduced costs. That, it doesn't work like that, because the college is still carrying the same old costs as before. And they just have shifted the faculty to a video room or a Zoom room or whatever, in our case, an ELO room. But we have not reduced other costs. But if there was an online university that was set up from scratch and it didn't actually have the physical campuses, the cost of education most definitely will go down. And it is my prediction in the next 5 years, the tuition fees would be 50% of what they are today.
Main thing missing in online education is the absence of a campus, a life feeling fellowship. There is another question along similar lines. Can a technology like ELO evolve to a stage where it can provide that kind of social interaction?
So, I'm sure that during the COVID days, that is all the way from March till now, we have got used to shopping online using Amazon or any similar, Amazon-like e-tailer. And many of us before may not have had that experience, or we may have used it very sparingly. We used to go to a shopping mall. We like walking through these shopping malls, and we bought especially non-food items in a shopping mall by exploring shops. But ever since COVID, we have now got so used to buying everything online. Now, online has certain advantages, but certain disadvantages. Now, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. So you cannot have online and say, I want on campus as well, because that is the virtual experience. So VR may be able to do it, but it will never be the same thing, just like how Amazon can never actually replicate going to a physical mall. Online education, even ELO, cannot replicate the real experience. In certain respects, it will be better. And I can assure you, learning for sure will be much superior online than on campus. But the experience of physically walking through a campus, walking to your classroom, sitting in a cafeteria and having let's say a samosa with your friend, that can't be replicated online, unfortunately. So I think it's, there are some pluses and some minuses, and some minuses and some pluses when we look at on campus and online and compare the two.
Satyan has a question that he would like to ask himself. Satyan?
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. Mr.
Yeah.
Jain, that was truly informative. My question is that right now we are in a lockdown, we are at home, so there's a lot of euphoria for online education. What happens post 6 months after everybody is invested in online and then things go back to normal? How do you think they will continue with online for how long? Or will there be a hybrid pattern, something like that?
It's a very, very good question, Satyan. A question that I often get asked internally because we are investing so much money in this online technology. So the question is, once life restores to normal, what will happen? A flip side of the same sort of thought is work from home. Many people ask, now that we've all got used to working from home, will we actually go back to a physical office? And I think the answer lies that it will be somewhere in the middle. I don't think it would be 100% online or 100% on campus, but the answer will be hybrid. Now, the question is, why even hybrid? Why can't I just go to a regular campus like I used to? Because of cost. The costs will come down. Now, it's like working from home and going to a physical office. Now, going to an office has its own advantages. Working from home has its different advantages. But a blend of the two will make it more optimum. So, you still want to go to the office to have your meetings or meet your colleagues or just to have that social experience of going to work. But you don't need that 5 days a week. You don't mind that 2 days a week. And 3 days a week, you can sit at home. You don't need the travel. You can have you can still contribute from home. So the same will happen for colleges, that for some time you want to go to a college where you meet your friends, you have that social experience, you can have some online, on-campus activities, but then for the rest of the time, you don't mind sitting at home as well. And you can sit at home. So just let me give a very easy to understand format. 1 week on campus, 1 week at home. So 1 week you go to the campus, you enjoy yourself. 1 week you learn from home because the costs come down and you don't really need to be on the campus all the time. Now, this is something that I think may happen. Obviously, I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know for sure what may finally happen. It's just a view. It's a thought. It's a prediction. And there may be other models that may evolve. But thank you for your question, Satyan.
The last question, Mr. Jain. Do you foresee tuition fees to reduce for American universities also? Places such as Harvard, Princeton, etc., or only for a certain section of universities?
I don't know for sure, but as you've asked me the question, I will try to give a reasoned prediction. I would say Harvard and the other Ivy Leagues would not reduce their fees because what you're paying for is I'm going to put it loosely, the snob appeal of going to Harvard, right? It's the snob appeal of the degree that you have that says Harvard on it. It's for your alumni network that respects a Harvard graduate. It's for the admissions standards. To get into Harvard requires you to be, a highly talented student. It's the faculty who teach at Harvard and the research that they've done. None of this is changing. And so I doubt very much that Harvard or Ivy Leagues would reduce their costs because now it's shifted online. And they're not going to increase their enrollment because they've gone online, because it would reduce then why you went to Harvard in the first place. You go to Harvard in the first place because it's an exclusive club. That exclusive club is never going to become a mass market club. It's highly unlikely unless they create a new brand or they do something different. I don't know what exactly. They may find some more unique solutions, which frankly I've not heard, but they could. I just read recently Google coming out with their own degrees, actually, and they are at a much lower price point. So the Harvards of this world may compete with the Googles of this world in the future, because the Googles of this world can deliver, education at a mass level, much more economically, 100% online, and still have that same sort of brand value of it being a Google degree. I know we are partners with Amazon, and so Amazon have their own sort of education with their own degree. So there will be new models that will evolve. There will be new players that would evolve. You would still always go to Harvard for the prestige value of going to Harvard, but then you may also compete with other universities that may be from unknown names in the education world at Google. I know the healthcare world will be pretty much owned by Apple 4 or 5 years from now. I mean, we've already seen the amazing stuff they've done using Apple Watches, but Apple is highly touted as being the world's #1 healthcare player in a few years from now. So let's see what things happen. Certainly going to be a very, very exciting place. That much I can assure you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think we have one last question. Jenny, would you like to ask that?
Sure. Why India can't build universities like the US and have a research and development mindset?
Now, I hope my answer is not going to get me into a lot of trouble. Let me put it in the most, let's say, diplomatic way. Foreign universities have more elbow room than what you have in India. For example, I'll just give you one example of setting fees. Now, the government of India wants to control setting of fees. Now, if you set these fees, at the lowest common point, which is fine for a country like India, they're entitled to do it. So I'm nobody to say whether they should or shouldn't. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just answering the question that why don't we? Because research costs a lot of money. High quality costs a lot of money. The amount of money we pay our faculty maybe 10 times what Indian universities pay them. So I think there's a cost factor to it, and the cost factor has to be recovered through fees, because how else are you going to recover that? And I think countries like India, or let's say third world, or let's say emerging markets like India, Malaysia and Brazil, I'll give you just 2 examples. They too don't have, let's say, government-sponsored universities. So if you go to Europe, the government is a rich government and they pay for your university education. And they, get the best faculty, they get the best of everything. Brazil and Malaysia look at private education. They're saying, see, we, the government, cannot afford to sponsor your education, but we will allow private players to exist. And the private players have autonomy. They can set their own fees. They can run the university in a market-driven way. And so there's a lot of 75% of universities in Brazil and Malaysia are private. Now, in India, they say if you're private, it must be for non-profit. We will set the fees. Our people will be on your board. So you don't have that elbow room. So the private university sector in India doesn't exist too much unless it's set up by a politician. So it's an unfortunate environmental situation. It's not that we can't. I mean, the top deans, the deans of some of the top 5 business schools in the world are all Indian, including Harvard. So it's not that we Indians don't have the talent, we don't have the competence, we don't have the, we don't have the motivation to do it in India. But we'd much rather go to the US or some other country to use our talent for where it's valued more. So I think I've run out of my time fully. And so I do thank everyone in the Rotary, Mudit and Malti, Farad, Arvind, everyone else who supported me from coming today and for your engaging questions. And I'm happy to take any further questions if any of you have offline. And, because I just love education, as you can probably see. And I'm very happy to meet with anyone who's more interested. Thank you so much.
A brilliant talk, Nitish Bhai.
Thank you. May I request Honorary Secretary Satyan to give the official vote of thanks?
Sure.
Mr. Jain, that was delightful, really informative and insightful. In fact, one quote of Benjamin Franklin comes to mind when that is the biggest takeaway, I think, for all of us, that investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Thank you so much for this afternoon spent with us. And as a token of our appreciation, we'll be lighting up a rural household with solar power. We'll be sending you the certificate in due course. I have an announcement for the members. Members, please note that next Tuesday, 15 September, we shall be having an extraordinary general meeting at 11:30 via Zoom to adopt changes made in the club constitution and club bylaws as recommended by Rotary International. And that will be followed at 12 noon by a regular weekly meeting where we'll have renowned photographer Atul Kasbekar addressing us. Statistics for today, we had a maximum participation of 96. And we had interactors, Rotaractors, visiting Rotarians as well. Thank you so much. The meeting is now closed.
Thank you, Nitish Bhai.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Brilliant talk. Brilliant talk.
very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, President.
Bye.
Another brilliant session.
Farad, thank you.
Thanks to Farad. And his,
Thank you,
And
Farad.
President. Thank you.
And of course, thank you, Mudit.
No. Saul
Yeah.
Farad and Anand. And
And
Thanks,
Satyan,
Farad.
the President.
Take care, everybody. Have a nice lunch.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
And
Thank
champagne.
you.
And champagne.
Yes, bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Satyan, go for it.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you,
If
President.
Malti is there, I want to take one pic of Malti.
Yeah, please.
But spotlight it first.
Yeah, I'm
Go
spotlighting her.
close. Go close. We see the champagne below.
See the champagne?
Yeah, we can see the champagne.
Mudit, don't strangle her.
I know he's strangling me.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Thank
Thank
Good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Satyan.
Bye.
Jai Ho. And Neerav.